Hello and welcome to the France24 interview. My guest today is one of the most famous whistleblowers of our time, a man who revealed the existence of US mass surveillance programs spying on citizens all around the world, Edward Snowden, former CIA employee and NSA contractor. Edward Snowden, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. More than 6 years after your revelations, do you know if the NSA surveillance programs have really been reviewed?
So they have been reviewed, but it's not in the kind of way that you or I would like them to be reviewed. I don't think the programs have been looked at with an eye for meaningful reforms on a deep and systematic level. What we have seen is changes in the laws in the United States and other countries around the world, actually, as well, to try to legitimize the surveillance by putting it on a sounder legal footing, particularly in the United States, for example. The NSA, their mass surveillance program regarding phone records, previously had the government collecting everybody's phone records and storing them inside the government. So the government just had a bucket they could sort of sift through and look at anything they want. They passed a law, the USA Freedom Act, that changed this and made that explicitly unlawful, which was already forbidden by the Constitution, but they were violating that law, and that's, of course, what I revealed in 2013. However, what they've done to maintain the same kinds of spying is to make a sort of Faustian bargain, like a devil's pact with the telecommunications companies, where they say, well, we, the government, will no longer hold these records ourselves, but we want to demand that you keep records on all of your customers for all of these phone calls. And then when we want these records, when we want to look into someone's private life, you simply have to provide all of these to us. So in terms of what does it mean for the average person, the government is still spying on basically everyone they want to and on a pretty extreme scale. But now we have a little bit more involvement by judges. It is an advance, but of course it's nowhere near enough.
You said in 2013, in the very first interview you gave after your disclosures, that your greatest fear would be that nothing would change after your leaks. Do you feel like something has changed today?
Oh, absolutely. When I came forward and I was making that statement, I was talking in the context of this whole story about surveillance and information collection, mass scale monitoring and collecting profiles of everyone's private lives, both by the government and corporations, that this would be a 2-week story because the media would very quickly lose their focus on it. The governments would act to suppress reporting on this information. And what we actually saw was all of the government's attempts to sort of hide information or explain away their abuses actually led to further reporting and further interest. And now everybody in the world understands generally what's going on. Now, the problem is having a general understanding of something that's so technical and complex is not enough to protect yourself. But what's really changed most dramatically from the world of 2013 to the world of today is everybody is aware that Facebook is up to no good, that Google is up to no good, that all of these companies are really trying to shape and influence not just our societies, but our lives, our buying habits, every kind of general behavior that we have in a deeply targeted and personal way. And it's technology that is enabling this and making it all possible for the first time. Now, again, that hasn't solved the problem, but the first step to solving any problem is we have to create a shared sense of understanding. We need a common set of facts, and today we have that.
There's something I'd like to clarify. It's alleged that you took 1.7 million classified documents from the NSA when you left Hawaii. Hundreds have been shared with journalists so far. Are there more revelations to come in the future?
Well, I don't have any documents anymore. That's been the case since I left Hong Kong. I destroyed my copy of the archive before I had to escape because I didn't know what kind of governments were going to try to interfere or threaten me or bribe me or steal from me or, God knows what. So the only way to really protect the information was to not have it at all and trust the journalists to make the decisions about what should and should not be reported. Now, that reporting has continued for many years, and I would say you shouldn't expect any new bombshells. But what I would like to see in the years to come is the primary source material that hasn't been reported will probably be entrusted to academic institutions that are not reporting in the same way that network news might, right? Or even print journalism, where they need a story that's, a few pages long or a few minutes long. But in fact, they can begin to investigate the system at the length of books, right?
Do you believe that our democracies are threatened today by a security drift, by new laws that affect our fundamental freedoms? For example, we've seen the emergency state in France or the Yarovaya law in Russia, this controversial anti-terror legislation that the Russian citizens themselves are calling the Big Brother law.
Yeah, absolutely. I was one of the ones who was criticizing the Yarovaya paquet, or the Big Brother law in Russia as it was being proposed. Unfortunately, everyone knows the troubles of the Russian people and their relationship with the government. But I think it is new and really disappointing to see this kind of practice infecting the West, not on a onesies-twosies basis, but really on a comprehensive scale. In Canada, we've seen things like the C-51 bill. We've seen in Australia mandatory metadata retention. In the United States, of course, we sort of kicked off the trend with the Patriot Act in the wake of September 11th. And this is really fundamentally changing the boundaries of common rights that everybody uses in our daily lives. But it's problematic because it's only recently happening on this legal scale. And even here, what the law says and how the governments actually interpret those laws, the authorities, how the government interprets the authorities those laws are granting to them, is all happening in secret. So we have very limited understanding of what exactly our governments are doing, both against us domestically and in our name internationally.
And what about encrypted data? Is it still protected, or has the NSA found a way to read our messages, to follow our personal and private conversations? For example, when we are communicating on popular apps like WhatsApp, is that safe?
Strong encryption works. We know it works. Without strong encryption, I could not have communicated with journalists and really gotten away with it. But in fact, I did. However, encryption is not the answer to every security problem. One of the central tenets of internet communication that people who are using encrypted messengers don't really understand is even if you send a communication across the wire that's perfectly armored, think of like an armored truck on a highway, you can't see inside it. You don't know what it's carrying, but you still know what building it left from and what building it stopped at if you finish. And this is analogous to your phone contacting someone else. WhatsApp, which is now owned by Facebook, is becoming aggressively opposed to its customers' privacy, which is a big change from how it was operating when it was more privately held. What this means is they're going, well, we can't necessarily read your messages directly when you're using our messenger, but what we can do is see everyone that you're talking to, the frequency that you're talking to them with. And from that, we can derive a social graph, not just of you, but everyone who uses our platform. And from that, hopefully, a significant percentage of everyone in the world. And again, that's a dangerous thing that they should not be doing, and it should not be legal for them to do in the first place.
Some have called you a traitor, others a patriot or a hero fighting against a Big Brother. How would you describe yourself?
This is the question that I get a lot. People, they want to put me into a box. They want to heroize me, or they want to villainize me. But when I think of myself, I'm really no different from you. And I think that's really the fundamental political importance, if there is any, of my personal story, is we're not all good, we're not all bad, we're not different sorts of people. When you start thinking about the world in that way, oh, there's heroes, and oh, there's these terrible people, you're distancing yourself from them. You're going, I can't be a hero. I can't be a villain. I'm just a normal person. The reality is there aren't, these different classes. We're all the same. What is different are the decisions we make. And this to me is a fundamentally powerful thing because it means you're never more than one decision away from doing something that can change the world. And I believe that's true of all of us.
And living in exile today in Russia, what is the hardest for you? What do you miss the most?
My family, of course. I think for everybody, it's hard to be separated from home. And for me, it's been a very long time now, going on 6 years.
And you haven't seen them at all for the past 6 years?
I have. They have visited me in Russia, but of course I can't visit them. I can't go home in the same way, and that's unfortunate. But some of the sting is being pulled out of exile by technology. The way that we communicate today, now I can communicate with my family. People ask, where are you living? What are you doing? And of course, I'm stuck in Moscow, not by choice. But I tell people, I sleep in Moscow, but technology lets me live all over the world. I can have a conversation with you in Canada, in France, in Germany, and then talk to students at a library in Philadelphia all in the same day. And that's never been possible before. And I think it's really starting to limit the power of exile as a tool of governments in order to silence dissent.
And how is your life on a daily basis? Do you work? Are you paying rent?
Yeah, of course I'm paying rent. It's the one thing none of us can escape from. I am professionally a speaker. And so when I do many of these events around the world, some of them are for corporations, some of them are for conferences, some of them are for universities. And that's been very fortunate for me because it's allowed me to make quite a comfortable living, actually, for somebody who can't travel. I work increasingly with the Freedom of the Press Foundation in the United States, where they elected me president of the board.
How do you cope with still being a wanted man? Are you looking over your shoulder when you walk in the streets in Russia?
I've done it for so long now that really you don't think about it. But I do still live in kind of an unusual way, I think, to normal people. I never use credit cards, right? Like, how do I even get this without applying in my name and putting down an address and these kind of things? And of course, when we know that there's all of these agencies that are raiding these databases for details about our private lives, to me, that starts to look like things that's not a good deal. Instead, I pay for things by cash. But in terms of like, do I walk around in fear at this point? No, it's, I ride the metro, I go to restaurants like everybody else. But are there greater risks? Sure, of course, and I'll always live with them. But that's really the question we have to ask ourselves. Are we going to permit institutions to bully us out of living in the way that we believe is right? And for me, the answer is no. I've done something that I believe in, and if someone wants to harm me for that, well, that will just prove what those people are like.
Before current US President Donald Trump was sworn in January 2017, former Deputy CIA Director Michael Morrell wrote that handing you over would be the perfect inauguration gift from Putin to Trump, the Trump-Putin relationship being unclear. Do you fear that at some point the Russian president might decide to hand you over to the US?
There's nothing I can do about that if that would ever happen. I can say that when you look historically for any analog to that, it's simply never happened before. At the same time, it's kind of cheeky, but not really surprising that a former head of the CIA is going to go, oh, let's put in the newspapers. This would be such a friendly gesture if you help us get rid of one of our enemies. That will do that, sort of pave over all the damage between our relationship. But I think that's actually extremely dark when you think about what that says for the character of the United States intelligence community, when they're starting to say things like, well, as long as they help us hide the bodies, we're all friends.
And do you believe you would have a fair trial if judged in the US?
No, well, that's a good question. It's actually got nothing to do with what I believe. It's what the law permits. I've been charged under a very unusual law in the United States. It's the Espionage Act of 1918. And this is a law that does not permit the people who are accused of it of making a defense to the jury, a moral defense to the jury, of explaining why you did what you did, what your motivations were. It permits very unusual court proceedings, court procedures that allow them to close the courtrooms and give secret evidence and use secret witnesses who are in disguise, all kinds of crazy things like that. The question really is for you and everyone else. If the only trial that the law permits is one where the jury cannot consider why the person committed this crime at all into their deliberations, can you even have a fair trial? Is that a possibility? I would argue, of course, not.
How do you envision your future? Do you think that one day you will see home again?
I do, actually. And this is one of the things that I think is becoming more clear year after year. I came forward in 2013, and everyone in political life in the United States really allied against both myself and the journalists and newspapers who brought this story forward, because it implicated them in all three branches of government in a kind of clandestine criminality that was not just taking place domestically, although it absolutely was happening domestically, but around the world. It was one of the largest scale violations of human rights, since it was happening billions of times per day, that we've really ever seen. But now we're in 2019. And all of the sort of accusations against me in 2013, when they were trying to malign my character and get people to just question the story by, shooting the messenger, have started to fall away. The government's investigated me. They know I'm not a Chinese spy. They know I'm not a Russian spy. They know I'm not anything but what I claim to be. And what we see now is bit by bit candidates for president in the United States. We see ordinary people, everybody coming to a consensus that even if they don't like me personally, which is, more than fine, or even if they think, what I did was risky in certain ways, as all publication and reporting is, on balance, we are better off for knowing what our government was doing in secret. This has not risked lives, this has saved lives.
Edward Snowden, thank you for speaking to us here on France24, and thank you to all of you for watching. Do stay tuned for more news on France24.